Our gospel today is from the Gospel of John, chapter 18. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own? Or did the others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born. For this I came into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." This is the gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our God, our rock, and our Redeemer. Amen. I've always loved to read. From the time I was very small, I loved books. I didn't think that bedtime stories should be kept at bedtime. Certainly, we could read all day long. That's what I did when I had time off, and I read my favorites over and over and over. And it didn't take me long to find out that with a little bit of help, I could find new favorites and new favorites and new favorites and new favorites. And some of my favorites to this day are apocalyptic. I love Christ the King Sunday. Not everyone does. They think the whole king language isn't, very comfortable in a world in which we don't serve a king, and we kind of broke our way from the king 200 years ago and all of those things. But that's because worldly kings and heavenly kings are two very different things. But I love the language that looks towards that future that we have together. And some of my favorites paved the way for that. I was probably in 5th grade when I read all 7 books of the Chronicles of Narnia back to back. And when I was done, the only thing I could do was start over and read them again. I did the very same thing from The Hobbit through the trilogy of Tolkien. A few years later, I read it back to back. And then when I was in my sophomore year in high school, I actually was able to take a class, an actual English class in high school in the 70s on Tolkien. It was so much fun. We had to read The Fellowship of the Ring, but I read all 4 again, just because I could. I love that sense of what evil and good can do, and the holding out that good will always triumph is a wonderful thing. I love C.S. Lewis's picture of the end in the final book of The Last Battle, where everyone gets that moment to decide which door you're going into. Just so much of it speaks to me. So you won't be surprised that this week, when I was sitting with my brother and his wife, and they said, "Oh, there's half a dozen good movies to see," and started coming through them. They said, "Oh, there's the C.S. Lewis movie." And I said, "The C.S. Lewis movie? I want to see the C.S. Lewis movie." So we went to the C.S. Lewis movie. It's about an hour and 20 minutes, pretty short by today's movie standards. And it was kind of a story of his life. And the central character is the man who's been doing the one-man C.S. Lewis show. So if someone who will drive out of town for hours to go see great theater, you might have seen him. Paul and Linda had seen him doing 3 different things. I didn't even know he'd done 3 things. But C.S. Lewis is this wonderful, wonderful author, and he was for many, many years not a Christian. And so part of this story of his is the story that tells how he became a Christian, how that moment transformed for him to where he figured it out. And it is a wonderful show. I recommend you see it. The day it hits a DVD, I'll buy it, and we can all see it here. It is a great story of transformation, and many of us did something like that. We spend our early years being fed what God is. We spend our teen years into our 20s sometimes figuring out the world, and eventually we get back to this point where we figure out the world makes no sense without God in it. My favorite line in all of the things I've ever read of his, he said in this movie, and it just struck me. And I've been pondering it for days now, and it just keeps coming back and back and back. He said, I don't know any ordinary people. We'll pause. Interesting. But then he went on to say, everyone I know is immortal. Everyone I know is immortal. And I thought, I have never once stood here looking all at you and saying, you're immortal. You're immortal. We're all immortal. We are all immortal. We are all beyond what human beings are, beyond what the human life is. We are all children of the King. And Jesus Christ gave us immortality. And I've never used that word to describe all of us as a group before. And let me tell you, it feels great. You should try it. I don't know any ordinary people. I only know immortals. Superheroes too. I've known that for a long time. And many of you are truly superheroes. But to say together that in this day where we celebrate Christ the King, we celebrate these wonderful readings from Daniel, this apocalyptic's looking towards these words from Revelation where we hear the I am, the Alpha and the Omega, beautiful psalm language, all of this that comes down to know that Jesus stood before Pilate, immortal, and he stands with us today, inviting us all into the immortality that he is giving us. Amen, amen, amen. Gracious God, we thank you for the immortality that you are giving us. Thank you for opening our eyes to see past the ordinary into the life we have in the future forever and ever. Amen. Please stand as you're able.